painting is a great painting for January. It's super basic, simple, easy. It looks really difficult, but it's not. The moon was a lot of fun to paint. And I mean, how cute with the little puppies right here in the painting. So if you haven't painted in a long time or it's your first time, you're gonna have a lot of fun with this one. Today I will be painting on a 16 by 12 inch canvas stretched over a wood frame. It is already pre-gessoed, so I don't have to do anything to prepare the canvas. Now this can be a cool picture vertical. It can also be a really cool picture horizontal. It's up to you and your preference and what you think would look good on the wall for the direction of how the painting is orientated. Today I am choosing to paint my painting vertical. The first thing that I'm going to do is add some blue paint onto my palette. Now I prefer to use paper plates because it makes cleanup way easier. I'm going to add just a little bit of paint, not a whole lot, to my palette. And then I'm going to come in here with a large square. It's basically just a square. It's a flat edge on the top. And I find that this kind of a brush is way easier for cutting for painting over large surfaces. You can use a large round if you want. I'm going to go ahead and paint the sides first. And then once I have a nice coat over the sides, I will go back over on the top of the canvas. And if you need to turn your canvas, please do so. I turn my canvas all the time while I'm painting. And if at any time you get stressed out over the painting, don't worry about it. Just take a break, pause the video. I'm not going anywhere. I want you to remember to have a good time and have fun, and not everybody's painting's gonna look like the same. So if your painting doesn't come out looking like mine, don't stress or worry about it. Every painting is beautiful when there's love put into it. If you would like to play some music, go ahead and do that and turn it on. I always like to have music in the background when I'm creating art. The only reason I've chosen not to have music right now while I'm filming this class is because I have so many students and everybody has a different taste in music. So go ahead and turn on something fun and inspiring. Now I'm kind of going in a circle and I'm allowing there to be brush strokes on purpose. I like to have a lot of brush strokes in my paintings. I find that they're more visually stimulating and appealing, and they seem to do better when I'm doing craft shows and I have my art in galleries. I seem to do a lot better with selling them, so I'm assuming a lot of people enjoy that look, and I enjoy the look as well. So I'm going to continue it and just keep going with lots of brush strokes. Now, if that's not what you like, then don't worry, that's fine. I mean, there's sometimes I've painted some paintings that I don't put brush strokes in and they come out really awesome as well. So if you don't like brush strokes, just go back over many, many times and keep blending and blending, and then those brush strokes will kind of fade away. It's almost like you need to keep applying the paint as it's drying, and by doing that, you're blending out those brush strokes. All right, so I have a nice little circle here that I like, and just going around, checking out where I could put maybe a couple little brush strokes, trying not to overthink it. Sometimes I find myself where I overthink too much, and then my paintings don't come out that good when I overthink them. Okay, I like that. That's pretty good for right now. Now, I like to use a lot of paper towels when I paint. It really helps me out a lot. So I'm going to take my paper towel. I'm going to put my brush and wipe it across the paper towel to get some of the excess paint off. I'm going to flip it and do the other side. Then I'm going to take it into my water and I'm going to go ahead and mix in the water with a slight bend, not too much of a bend. I don't want to destroy my brush. I quite like this brush and I want it to last for more painting. So don't press too hard, just a little bit. Now the reason why I like pictures is so that way I can bend up here and it makes it way easier that the water's not spilling out. And I find that having a handle is really nice and it tapers in a little bit. So that way it's less likely, I mean, it'll still spill and it's way easy to spill, but it's not like a big open brim. Okay, so once I've washed it, I'm going to come over here onto the paper towel. I'm going to do the same thing and wipe. Now I notice as I'm doing this, I still have some blue coming out, and that's not good. So what I'm going to do is dip it back into the water. Bend the bristles to get some of the moisture out. And I'm going to try again. There's a little less, still blue. So I would consider to do this process several times until you do get a clean brush and you're ready to go. I'm going to, for the sake of the video right now, I'm just going to move on. But the method that I just showed right there is the method that I do every single time I wash my brush and I clean the brush. So I would recommend that you do the same thing. Your brushes will last a little bit longer, and by doing that method, you'll have less chances for cross-contamination within the colors. Okay, so now a fun moment. Let's go ahead and work on the moon. Now I'm going to add a little bit of white, not a whole lot, right onto the canvas, right in the middle where the moon's going to be. I am going to go ahead, and for this one, I'm going to go with my round. So check out this brush. It's got a round tip to it. This is considered my round large because the canvas I'm working in is a 16 by 20 or a 16 by 12 inch. So canvas is quite small. So it's the idea of the size of the brush is all suggestive, based on the size of canvas you're using and working with. And then also all these different factories that make brushes, they all have their different kind of standards. Like what's a large in one factory isn't really a large in another. So it's all kind of suggestive as to which brush you're using. Any round will do. Okay, so I'm going to let this paint dry. I do feel like I added it on rather thick. I didn't mean to do that. I added a little too much paint. But sometimes these happy accidents, they happen. I'm going to give that a dry for a minute. Okay, let's go ahead and add some cool stars. Now an easy way to do this, since I have a clean brush here and I have a lot of wet paint that I accidentally added a little too much, I'm going to take some of this paint and borrow it. I'm going to add some water to my brush, got some paint, and now I'm going to flick it and I'm going to get really cool stars. Now the more you flick the brush, the smaller your stars are going to be. So you want really wet and moist paint to do this. The moister your paint, the better your results are going to be. If you need to, go ahead and turn your canvas. Sometimes they kind of come together like they did on that corner there, and that produces shooting stars. I like to exaggerate with my paintings and really just put a lot of stars in there. I find that lots of stars are better. I'm painting the sides right here, trying to flick that paint to get it all over everywhere. Now be careful, because by flicking the paint, it does get a little messy. That's normal. As you see right here, I have covered my table with paper. I have a wood floor too, so if it flicks out into the floor, it's okay. It's fine, because it's wood, and I really don't mind because it's my art studio. Now, if you have carpet, I I would, if it was me and I was trying to keep my carpet pretty, I would lay down like a tarp. I would recommend laying down a tarp that is better quality, not like a cheap one, because then you're going to get holes and tears, and when you move your chair, it's a whole to-do. Of course, then, you know, how invested do you really want to be? Art supplies can get quite pricey. I know. I paint all the time. I'm always looking for good deals. I noticed that since we started having this virus that the stores, the art stores, are not giving out as good a deals as they used to in the past. When I guess they had to shut down for a while. Now they're making up for it. And sad for me. Okay, so now that we have the stars, be very careful that you don't touch and smear the paint. But I'm going to do a technique called dry brushing where I'm going to apply just a little bit, not a lot, okay, just a little bit of paint onto my brush. And I'm going to come around and kind of blend it in and try to work on that circle. Now what we're doing here by lightly going over it is we're making a little bit of a halo. So that way the moon will appear as though it's glowing. And this can only be done if you have less paint on your brush. So you want like practically no paint on your brush at all. And that's why it's called dry brushing. So very lightly back and forth, working on that glow. Kind of blending it out a little bit. Blendy blend. Now the more that you go back and forth and you work on this blending and this fade, the cooler it's going to look. Take your time. Remember to breathe. All right. Now if you don't have a perfect circle yet, don't worry, we're going to get there. This is the basic preliminary parts of the moon. We're still going to work on the moon, so bear with me. And just as long as we have the basic idea of the circle and then we have a little bit of this blending occurring. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking maybe I faded too much. So basically what we're trying, the look we're going for is really bright in the center, and the further that you get out and away from the moon, the less white you get. The least amount of vibrancy. We're mostly worried about the glow right now. We're not worried about the inside of the moon yet. That'll come later. And the glow can be as big as you want. It can be, you know, there's so many different ways to this glowiness. I'm kind of liking my glow. I think it's pretty good for the moment. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a moment and let this dry before I continue. We're going to work with the trees. We're going to go back and forth, back and forth. I like to do that when I paint because it lets me see new things from a fresh perspective when I take breaks throughout my painting by going back and forth. So I'm going to take a moment with my handy dandy hair dryer and I'm going to dry everything I got in the canvas. But mostly what I'm the more concerned with is drying the stars. Now if your stars are way too liquidy and watered down, I would recommend to let them air dry. Mine, because I am using thick body acrylic paints, they were wet, but they're not really, they don't feel like watercolors right now. So they're still kind of thick. So I can use a hair dryer to dry them, because if you have really thinned out paint and you use your hair dryer, it will push the paint around the canvas, and then you could get a look like the idea when you have watercolors and you blow through a straw into the paper and how that looks, how the scatter effect. That's what you get with the hair dryer. But with me using thick bodied acrylic paints, yeah, I think they're quite fine. So I'm gonna I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes while I do this hair dryer, and I recommend at this point you do the same, and I will see you in just a moment. You'll know that your paint is all the way dry when there are no longer any shiny areas. So now let's work on a little bit of trees. Now there are many different ways to do this. I have studied and I've painted many different ways, but I'm going to show you what I think is the easiest and the funnest way to go about painting trees. So I'm going to add a little bit of green onto my palette. I don't need a whole lot, just a little. And I'm going to add a little bit of white onto my palette as well. Now we're going to be using a technique where we're blending onto the canvas. It's going to be really cool and it's all going to come together nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and take my round, large brush that I had. I feel that at this step, if you use a round brush, you'll have better success. So we're kind of going to just make it up and see where we want a tree. Now I kind of want a lot of trees. So I'm going to come over here. I'm first going to go into some green paint, dip it in. And let's see, where should we start our first tree? Let's start our first tree right here. I'm going to swoosh it down, and I'm going to do little swooshes coming right and left. So the first one goes straight down, and then the other ones are more like a V pattern. Now I did a couple, I'm going to go back in with the white, and I'm going to go back over them. Now this is going to make the tree appear as though there is snow. And it's also going to give some light green areas. I'm continuing the V pattern going down. So I'm making the letter V. And they do get a little bit larger and wider. We do, as it goes down, we do want to keep in mind that the tree is kind of like we're trying to make a cylinder. So basically a triangle that's round and it has volume. The more little brush strokes you get on here, you go back and forth. Like, so I start with the green first and then I go back into the white. So every little thing I make is right here. We're going to do green first and then we'll come back into white. Now what happens after so long is sometimes the colors start blending on your brush. That happens quite often. So if you feel like you're getting too much of a blend and you're not getting a distinction in color between the different branches, because we still want to see that dark green, we want to see a light green, and we want to see white. So if you're not getting those distinct colors, take a moment and wash your brush. Which probably, now I'm talking about it, I should do the same. So what I'm going to do is just wipe off excess paint. I don't need to put it back in water at the moment because I don't need to thin out my paints and I'm still working in the same color. So I'm going to go back in with the green. Remember, green first and then white. So I'm going to lay down a couple green ones. And I don't go that far down. I notice how I'm changing colors quite frequently. I'm not painting the whole entire tree green. This is because I want an overlapping effect to happen. And so if I painted the whole entire tree green first and then I go back down in, then that overlapping is just not gonna, I don't know, it's just not gonna be as overlappiness as much as I would want it to be. So pretty much just do one row at a time. And notice with my branches here, I don't go over them several times. I only do it like a little bit, like once, maybe twice, maybe three at the most. But I just try to get it all done in one pass because I don't want over blending. The less blending you have, the better. But you still, I mean, there still should be a little bit of blend. A little bit is good. Let's see, do I want to go farther? I'm going to leave it at that for the moment, just for the moment. We will probably come back, but just at the moment, I'm liking this far down as I went right now. Here's a close-up of what I have. See, it's rather quite messy, and the more messy it is, the cooler it's going to look when we're done. So no stress, and that's my #1 rule in my class, don't stress. We're here to have a party and we're having a good time. So let the party happen. Okay, so now that we have one cool tree, let's try another. I'm going to do one, let's do one right here. Notice how I didn't do it quite to the right. If I did one right here and it was the same size and shape and everything, it would make the painting appear to be too balanced. And yes, balance is good, but I don't know, in this instance, I think the random chaos is a little bit better than having too much balance, especially because we're painting nature here. So like things in nature, they're not, I mean, okay, some, you know, there's shapes and things that occur in nature, but like we want like a random chaos looking. We want each tree to have its own little personality. And the more personality each tree has, the better. And if we are kind of asymmetrical with the placement of our trees, they will appear to be more random, as though they were in a forest and they weren't planned. They weren't planned and put down in the ground on purpose, that they just kind of naturally occurred. is coming out really nice. I'm loving this tree. It's beautiful. You're doing a good job. Keep it up. Oh, these paintings are going to be so awesome. I wish we could do, like, we should totally do a collage with everybody's painting together. Wouldn't it be so cool if we made like a collage and we showed off everybody's cool paintings? How awesome. If you want to share it with me, I would love to see it, like, when you're done. Like, send me an email or, like, a post. Like, I'm all over Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm all over all those platforms. So whatever is better for you, put it up there and then, like, tag me in it. So that way it'll send me, like, the algorithm will send me over so I can see it. Because I totally want to see how your painting turned out. Okay, so now that we have this tree, where else would be a really cool place for a tree? I was thinking, what if we put ones on the side to be like more, because if we just did a row of trees, that would be cool too. But if we had like a big one, I want to feel like I'm in the middle of the woods versus I'm up on the edge of the tree line looking into the woods. I want to feel like I'm in the woods, you know? So let's go ahead and I'm going to add a really big one here. And having these at different heights is going to trick the brain and really make us see depth. Now, it might be a little tricky because I did come up here against the edge, but that's okay. You know, sometimes we gotta push ourselves a little bit. I'm just gonna work that edge around. Okay, I have run out of green paint. I need to add my paint. So did you notice that in this painting, I'm only adding the paint on my palette as I need it. Now the reason why I choose to do this versus setting all the paint out at once is because it keeps the paint moister for longer. Acrylic paint tends to dry quite easily and fast compared to like oil paints. And so this is just by taking it out when I need it, I have a longer time in which I can use it before it gets all like dry and sticky. I'm going to take a quick moment here and wash out my brush. I recommend you do the same thing every once in a while, even though we're painting on the same color. If we do a good washing of our brush, it just helps it so that way the paint isn't drying into the brush, which will help the brush last longer. But then also it will keep the brush in a nice pretty point. And you know, remember how I said earlier about the mixing of the colors? Sometimes we just we want to have less mixing. Ooh, this one might be a little challenging, but it's okay. We'll get through this together. And remember, keep it going as a cone. Now this one can afford to be a larger cone because this tree is going to be it's closer to us. And so because of that, we see more of it. It's more there. I do have to keep in mind to cover up all the blue. There were some areas there I didn't cover up. Now you can have the sky showing through. That's totally cool, and I've painted many paintings like that. But with this particular one, I'm doing what's considered hyperrealism. So it's exaggerating the tree itself. So I'm being very exaggerating with the colors. And I mean, really, if we were painting this, but we were doing a classical type painting, which is realism, more of a painting that is to look like a photograph, then yeah, I think it would be best if you had some spots where the tree was kind of sparse and you could kind of see through. But for this, I'm doing impressionism. So I don't need to be super particular and get everything perfect. Impressionism is defined as an art, but it's not how it actually looks and the photographedness of it. It's more about how do you feel? How does it feel that it's supposed to look? So I'm on purpose not wanting to make it look like a photograph. And if it does, for me, I will consider that I would have failed this painting and it would be an absolute disaster. That's not what I'm going for. I'm going for fun and whimsical. So that's why I'm going to make sure you make the middles a little bit bushy. I started noticing I wasn't doing that in these trees. I wasn't giving a little bushiness in the middle. And these trees do have moments in the middle, like branches. Otherwise, if the branches aren't if there isn't any that are coming towards you, we still want to keep that V. But in the middle, because especially here, this one's getting bigger, my V, I have to add some buddies in the middle here and show that the branches are really, the V's get wider and bigger, but yeah, our branches, for the most part, they kind of stay the same, for the same size. Now, with perspective, if we were doing realism and we were trying to make it look like a photograph, then we would want to alter the size of the branches, because as they get closer to us, they would naturally appear to be a little bit longer and larger, even though they're really not in life. They would just appear that way because of perspective. So many things to take into consideration when you're painting, huh? This really is my happy time of the day, when I can just focus on my painting and I don't have to focus on anything else. And I've noticed that after sitting down and painting for a while and it's basically taking my mind off of those things that I worry about. It's like a mental break for me, and then I feel better later. So I hope that this class does this for you, so that you're at the end, you're like you had a little vacation. Because I know most likely that's how I'm gonna feel, because that's how I always feel. It feels good to take a little vacation from time to time, doesn't it? It's really coming along. Now with this painting, this tree, I'm going to go, I think, pretty much to the end here. I mean, you can really go as far as you want with the painting, but I'm feeling it, that I'm going to kind of continue it down. Then the further I go down with the tree, it's going to start giving the appearance that we're really up in the woods. If I were to stop the painting now, it would be more like I'm in the woods, but I could always be closer, like the tree is a little further away. That's another little thing about perspective. And I know all this sounds super common sense, and it really is. But those things we don't consciously think about, but they're there. And so I find myself needing to oh yeah, okay, yeah, and remind myself all the time. I after all these years of painting, I still, oh yeah, remember that? That's so, so it's good to take a refresher course and keep thinking about these things. Now I did notice that Picasso, the older he got, the more the less he was interested in the idea of perspective, and then he just kind of went with it, which is cool. It's not really Picasso's not really somebody that Like, I don't think that I would paint one of his later in life paintings and, well, have it hanging in my house. It's not my style. But definitely interesting and cool. I mean, I think, you know, if there are different locations, like maybe someplace where there was a party or a festival or something, that way it could be really cool and whimsical and fun. But I'm more of an impressionist painter. It's more my style. Of course, you know, to be a good artist, I do fully believe you should study all of them. When I was at the university, it's what we did. We studied all the genres and we practiced, and I feel going through that training of, you know, it's helped open my eyes and helped me figure out things. And then I've learned techniques and ideas, and I'm like, oh, I could apply that for other things. So definitely, his work is definitely worth a try if you want to practice a little bit. You'll get some new, fresh nuances and ideas for your own work. Okay, so now that I have that, I stopped before I went all the way to the edge, just to give me a little bit of, I'm going to put a snow patch there, and that way it's not like I'm hanging, like I'm climbing on the tree. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to leave a space because I think this is pretty cool. It looks like a chili pepper. Maybe I should cover it. This one doesn't quite look like a star. Well, I do feel that it would be good to have another tree here. That'd be kind of nice. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll do another tree here. But remember what I said about varying the heights? The more you vary them, the cooler your painting's going to start looking. This one I'm going it to be different than the one on the right. I'm going to add it a little bit in. I need more paint. I got up and I can see my painting from a little distance here, and I'm looking at it sideways, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing. It's coming. Slowly but surely it's coming. Take a moment to wash and clean your brush. It's been a while since we've done that. All right. Let's go into it. So I'm going to remember, the first one when you start the tree is straight down. And then after that, there are a series of V's. And the V kind of gets larger. And then sometimes towards the bottom, we're going to add some extra middle ones. You need to have middle ones every so often. That way it'll appear more 3D. Because otherwise you have like a really flat tree, like there's no middle bushes, and which could be cute, but I don't know, very two-dimensional. Now what we're doing here with this technique, you can also do this exact same method on flowers, and they look really cool. When I first started doing this, I was practicing and doing this as flowers, and I still do them as flowers. They're so fun. They're like, you know, with purples. At the moment, I'm forgetting the name of those flowers. I want to say hosta, but I don't think that's right. I'm pretty sure that's wrong. But they're Easter flowers, and they're quite tall. They come in like purple and pink and yellow. So really just changing the color really changes the look a lot. And you know, it's your imagination. Now, if you have to, like I'm right now, if you have to go around the side, go ahead and do that. Keep it going. Now, you don't have to paint your sides if you don't want to. I prefer to paint my sides because I like how it looks. It feels finished when I do that. I've noticed my paintings tend to do better at the gallery when I do that. And also, by painting the sides, it saves me from having to spend money on a frame to still get the look of finished. I myself do not frame my art solely because when I'm in a gallery and people buy my paintings, they either love or hate the frame. And I just don't want to spend all this much money on a frame and then the customer would be like, oh, that frame doesn't match my house. And then most likely what'll happen is that they'll be like, they won't want it because of the frame. And okay, this has happened to me too, where they liked the frame and hated the painting. That's happened also. So I just not deal with dramas and just not do frames, and it's up to them. And then also by not doing that, it's not costing me extra money that, you know, like I have to buy the frame or I have to make the frame myself, and it's a lot less heartache. And then I can kind of pass that on to my customers and not ask for a whole lot of money for my art. I can, you know, just, you know, cost and budget and whatnot. All right, so it's coming along really nicely. Let's see, I think I'm going to go down a little bit longer. In painting, I don't like it when things are all the same height. I kind of boo-booed where I went a little too far, but these ones are too much together. So I'm going to give this one and let this one come down just a little bit more, just so it's uneven. I don't want anything to be even. Uh-oh, I think I might have to come up with some more white here. Yep, I need some fresh white, but I don't want a lot of fresh white. I almost forgot not to do a triangle. I almost started making it into a tube. Okay, so I'm liking that. It looks good. Yeah. So I'm going to take a quick moment and I'm going to use my handy dandy hair dryer to dry this painting as much as I possibly can. Now we did glob on the paint quite a lot, so it's going to take an extra little bit to dry. So give me a few moments and I'll be right back with you. ahead and work on the moon just a little bit. We're going to go back and forth until we get a moon that we just absolutely love. So I'm taking a little bit of black and I'm adding it onto my palette. Now, no need to use a lot, just a little bit. A little bit of black goes a long way. So now I'm going to use the bottom part of my brush. Any brush will do. And I'm flipping it over, and instead of using the part of the brush where it is, I'm really tired, it's been a long day, where the fibers are, we want to use the other side with the little dots. So I'm going to dot it into the black, and now I'm going to choose to keep one side a little bit darker than the other side. So I'm going to go ahead here and dot in some craters, making them very sparing. I'm going to go back and then just keep kind of working it around these little dots I got going on. It's going to take a minute, okay? So I need some gray. The best way to do that is to use some of my black and take some of the white and mix them together, and you'll get a gray. The more black you add, the darker the gray is going to be. The more white you add to your mixture, the lighter the gray is going to be. So now, since I have my bottom right of my moon, I'm going to show you a close-up right here. Bottom right of the moon. I'm going to go ahead and towards the middle of the moon add some of my gray. Now this dark that I have mixed seems to be a tad bit on the dark side for grays. That's okay. I'm just going to have this area then a little bit closer to the black dots. Now be careful not to go out into your halo area. Try to keep it within the moon itself. Don't go too far out. So I have my gray. Some of that gray can come down into the black area. I'm going to add some more white to my mixture to try to lighten the gray a little bit. Yeah, see, so that mixture I already had that I was working with mixing, I just added a little bit of white to it, and it really lightened up that gray. So now I'm going to take that, and then I'm going to go to the top part above where I had that darker gray. So do you see that I'm dotting, but I'm doing it, implying them in layers. So I'm getting the darker black, it's going to be towards the bottom right. And the lighter gray is going to be more towards the top. Okay, so now I'm going to take some more white and mix it in with that gray to see if I can get an even lighter gray. I'm going to use that into the right and just dot it. Remember not to dot into your halo. This is in the top. This is the top right area. All right, so basically the whole goal here is to go back and forth until there's craters everywhere, but just don't go into the halo area. I was looking here, and I don't know if you need to do this on yours, but I'm going to work on my halo just for a second here. I'm going to clean my brush and just blend it out a little bit more. Oh, can't. I feel like I didn't really do the circle as well as I could have, and my paint already kind of dried. I kind of want a bit of a crisper edge there with the moon, and I feel that I didn't really do that. Now, I do also want the edge of my moon to be bumpy as well. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle, because honestly, the moon ain't a perfect circle all the time. So, I mean, it really makes it actually look more natural and like real. And photographic if maybe you didn't have your moon a perfect circle, that it was waning or waxing. Okay, so I worked on my edges there. I'm feeling a little better. If you didn't have to do that, don't do that. I just was, me being the little overachiever perfectionist over here, felt like I needed to do it. Okay, so let's see. I've got a lot of paint here I'm going to mix together. Okay, I'm going to take some more white, and I'm going to just keep adding it until I get a lighter gray. The point is to have as many different shades of gray as possible. The more different shades of gray you have, the cooler your moon is going to start looking. If you wanted to, if this is taking too long, you could use your finger. You could use your round brush. But I'm going to go back into some black here and work. So I'm going to work in many different shades of black, gray, and white. Now, I feel that because we have allowed the white paint to dry and we're working here, I just feel it gives it a little bit of an extra oomph to have, you know, to let the paint dry a little bit and then working with it and then staying with this tool that I'm using. It just, I think the look of these type of moons comes out really well. It does take patience, you know, patience, but I think it's well worth it. You're really going to love the look when it's done. And pretty much just go back and forth between the light gray and the dark gray. And then when you have something that you're happy with and you love, stop. Don't overwork it. I have found myself that sometimes I do that, which it can be okay. I mean, I've had some cool paintings, but more often than not, in my experience, when I overwork something, then I'm like, oh, I wish I would have stopped 15 minutes ago. And when it was cool, and I just kept trying to be perfect, and then it got unperfect, and so that's my whole gist of the whole thing. So I'm going to let that dry for a minute there. I'm going to be revisiting it again, but for the moment, I'm going to let it dry. Now I'm going to take my round brush, and I'm going to come in here and fill in these areas. Oh, geez. I'm going to fill in these areas around the trees. I'm going to be very careful to not really go over the trees as much. Now I understand it's white on white, but this is really, it helps the painting with the same amount of shininess to have the white. And then also what it does is it's going to protect the painting over the long term, so that like if your painting comes in contact with moisture, humidity, cigarette smoke, it's almost like a coating. Because I feel the canvas, even though, yeah, it's pre-gessoed, it still is like it's, it yellows faster than if we have the paint over it. Now, if you want a painting to last a whole long time, many years and everything, do not put it in a location where there's smoke or water. What happens is you could get mold, especially on this type of canvas. The mold will appear on the back of the frame. And then the smoking basically just yellows everything, turns a little shade of brown if it's a lot of smoke. You can top coat it. Now when I have a painting that I absolutely love and I'm like, yep, this is it, this is the painting, then I do, I put like a layer of varnish on top. Sometimes it's matte, sometimes it's shiny. I prefer to use the spray method. It's basically just a can of spray paint that's sealant. You can do it with the brush. I found that those products tend to be a little bit more expensive, and it's just, I don't know. I get brush strokes where I don't want to be brush strokes, and I don't know, it's just not for me. But some paintings can look quite cool varnished with brush. Just more of a hassle really than a quick with a spray can, way faster, way to the point. Don't forget, oh no. Don't forget to do the sides. Now I am allowing there to be brush strokes. It's not showing up that much on camera, but here in life, when this dries, especially using the thick bodied paint, these little brush strokes are going to be seen, and they're going to be way super cool and cute. That it's like the snow is piled up and thick. At these base of the trees, I'm going to glob up the paint a little bit so it's like the tree is coming out of the snow. So the white paint kind of comes up and over into the tree, and it's kind of bumpy at the bottom. Like, so the paint isn't a straight white line across the bottom of the tree. It's bumpy. And that's just going to make it feel as though the snow, there's a lot of snow and it's popping out of the snow. Especially if you put those bumps in there. Really cover up those ends a little bit, because we don't want to really see the base of the tree, because we want these trees to be super fluffy. And when they're super fluffy, we can't see the base. I'm going to turn my canvas a little bit right here just to make it easier on myself. If you need to turn your canvas, go ahead and do that. I turn my canvas all the time. Now we could have applied this before we did the trees, but one of the reasons I chose not to was so that way I can really glob it up and over the trees. Oops, I got a little gray in my white here. I really wanted to have a look of globbiness. But here it's affected me, because now to get those pretty little points that I had, I kind of have to work it. I mean, we could have done both. We could have gone with the paint and then globbed it again, but really, honestly, this works just fine. You gotta work it. Either method, either way you do it, you're gonna have to work it, and it's still gonna take time. This way, I just feel is a little bit easier, because it was just that one little area. Okay, now since I worked rather quickly with covering up the space, I am going to take a little bit of gray, and they're going to be I should do blue. Let's do gray. We're going to make little shadows, and they're going to be very random, but they're kind of going to be at the base of the trees for the most part. The base of the tree is where the shadows are. And they're going to be random. And this is really going to give us some little bit of depth into the snow. So here's a close-up look of what I got going on. Just a little bit of grays here and there, and I'm just going to keep working it until I got a good mixture of white and gray. A really light gray. Really super, super light. Less is more gray. And it's just enough. Like, I'm not on purpose going all over the white. I'm just randomly assortment of gray in different areas. But I still want to have areas of my painting in which it's only just fresh white paint. Okay, once you got something you like, and you got shadows going on, go ahead, clean your brush, and then put some extra, like, fresh white that hasn't been mixed in with any of the green. Make sure you wash your brush really good to get off the gray. And then add where the highlights should be, where you don't want there to be too much of the gray and you just want more fresh white than gray, like right here. I'm going to add a space. I come down here. You got to wash your brush every so often, because all you're going to be doing is blending. had some green in there. I accidentally wiped it off my paper towel. My paper towel had some green. See what I mean? Less is more with this gray. Now this does make our trees look a little, or our snow look a little dirty, but it really just gives a shadow. And the shadows are what really makes our paintings come together and to really just become wow. There we go. I'm liking what I have on my painting, so I'm going to call it quits. Okay, so let's work on that moon just a little bit. I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to add a couple dark ones over here, not much. You're going to be sparing on the top right. That's just to give the shadowy effect. So I added just a couple of dots of black, but on the bottom right, we want a lot of dark black, and then on the top left, we want just like 5. We can do the same with the gray. We could come down with the gray a little bit into the right area, which is just a highlight a little bit to get those craters going. Remember, don't swoosh, okay? We just want tap. Oh no, I accidentally rested my arm down and it touched my wet painting. Hate it when things like that happen. Okay, I'm gonna go into my fresh white and then start at the end. Now that I'm liking what I have, I'm gonna go with that fresh white and dip it in, and that's when these craters are really going to start coming to life. So when you do this, start on the left side, and then you could do a couple down at the bottom right, but let's work on the right side first for a little bit. So basically we're just trying to make it like a black. You can add some fresh white down to the bottom areas. Just a little bit though, we don't want a whole lot. A labor of love. So far I'm liking what I see. Back and forth between the black, the white, and the gray. Remember, keep the top left light colored and then the bottom right dark. They can mix a little bit here and there, but less is more. Here's a close-up of what my painting is looking like. Notice how it's slowly starting to come together. Just be patient with yourself, it's gonna happen. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add some more fun, cool things into my painting, but before I do that, I'm going to take a moment here and completely dry my painting before I can add more. Well, my painting is not quite dry yet. That's okay. I'm going to give it a little bit longer to dry. I'm going to go back over here with some black and just put in a couple more little black ones here. Really want to have a contrast between the dark side of the moon and the light side. So by adding a lot more black here, I'm really going to get that look. There we go. I feel like that really kind of is helping a lot. Okay, so now let's go ahead and make the cute, adorable puppies. Now don't get stressed out, it's actually quite easy. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. So really what we're going to do here is we're just going to look at these and think about them as shapes. We're not going to think about them as puppies for the moment. So I'm going to use my liner brush. Look at my liner brush here. Tiny, skinny, pointy brush. Really pointy, skinny brush. I feel that this will work way better than using a big brush. So use your skinniest, pointiest brush you have. If your black paint is a little thick, you can add some water to it to thin it out, and sometimes that helps making these little tiny lines when you have thinner paint. Okay, so for the first one, we're going to pick a spot that we like, and let's see, I like this right here. So I'm going to do a small circle for the head. Then I'm going to do a little bit bigger circle for the body, almost like I'm making a snowman. Not quite, but almost. And then I'm going to do a bigger circle for the legs. Okay, I know it looks like a snowman, but bear with me just one moment. So take a moment, fill it in a little bit. Now, how would make this look like a dog and not a snowman? What we're going to do is we're going to do the knees. So the dog is facing away from us because it's looking up at the moon. So we're going to come over here, and on the left and the right side, we're going to make it a square pointy line. We're going to make a triangle that's pointing out from the left and the right. A little triangle so we can get that knee. We don't want it to be a perfect circle right there. We want to see that knee. Okay, so then with the middle of the body, I'm going to fill it in and make it so it's not all the way super round, that it comes out a little bit on the bottom sides of the circle, just a little bit. Okay, now for the head, oops, I got a little bit of white in there. For the head, I'm going to fill that in. It's a circle for right now. And then we're going to add the ears. And the ears are really what's going to sell it. So try to take it and do it in one pass. So basically we're kind of doing an upside down V. So on the right side, we're going to go up a little bit and then down. Let me do this really quick, and then I'll show you a close-up. So I'm going to go up and to the right, and then I'm going to go down and to the right. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now, it's going to be easier for me if I turn my canvas. I'm going to show you in just a second when I finish the shape. Up and to the right because I turned my canvas, or down and to the right, and then up and to the left because I turned my canvas. There we go. I just want to take a little bit of a double check. A little bit of, almost forgot the tail. So the tail, I want it to come up and to the right. So I'm going to go up and to the right. And the tail is going to be about the length to the knee. Okay, so let me just dust a few things here really quick. Okay, so here it goes. Come check out my painting here. So I made the snowman. So basically 3 circles, the outline of the basic idea of a snowman here. So I did a small circle, a medium-sized circle, and then a bigger circle. Once I had the basic outline of a snowman, if you see here with the knees, I kind of came out and pointed them. So I made like a pointy triangle on both the upper right side and the upper left side of the large circle on the bottom. I made it come out a little bit to give him those knees. I then took the middle ball and I opened it up a little bit towards the bottom of the middle ball on both the right and the left, and I flattened it out ever so slightly, but I still want to see that there's a groove there within his body. His legs and his body, there's 2 different dimensions. And then for the head, I did like 2 upside down V's. So one veered off to the right and one veers to the left. And then for the tail, I went to the bottom and up and to the right slightly, And I only really took it up to the knee. So very basic, very simple. Okay, and especially if you do it in black, it's, or well, not if you do it black. If you just, you can pick brown, you can pick, you know, whatever color you want your puppy to be. I'm going to go with black just because I feel that for this painting, it'll look pretty cool. The contrast with the snow. So take your time, breathe. Don't worry about the color. We got to let the paint dry before we do the color. So if you need some more time, just pause the video, but I'm going to continue on. Now for the other dog. Now what I want to do is I'm going to follow basically the same kind of idea. However, I do want him, remember how I said earlier with the trees, we want them to have their own little personalities. So I'm going to do him basic idea, but a little different just to have, he's going to be more of a puppy. So it's kind of like the mommy and the baby. So I want him to look like a puppy. So go ahead, get into your black. Make sure you have a nice pretty point. Since I'm starting a new object, I did take the time for a minute to go and wash my brush really good before I stuck it back into this paint. It's always good to have your brush nice and clean and ready to go for your next big application. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're almost going to think of him a little bit as a comma. I know it sounds weird, but trust me. So I'm going to make, and he's going to be smaller than the other one. So he's here, and he's kind of a comma. So just so we have a basic idea of where he's going to be. Okay, now let's fill in that comma. I'm going to give him a tail, and it's going to come up and down. So basically what I've created now is a hook, like a fish hook. So here's a close-up. I've got a little fish hook, but see? Little backwards J. So I got the tail, and then now let's fill in the body. Now, he kind of is a little bit facing the mommy. So because of that, we're going to see that on the left side of him, he has a flat back. So I'm going to make a straight line down, kind of fill it in. Now he also, we want to see a little bit of leg. So we want the leg to come out ever just so slightly. Okay, here's a close-up of what I've got. I had my hook, and then I filled in the body. See how I filled in the body, and then I gave him a point at the bottom where I filled it in a little bit. And he's got that knee. And remember to keep that line of his body on the left side. We want it to be straight on purpose because we're seeing almost his spine because he's turned ever so slightly. Now for his head pretty much is a circle for the most part. So just do a little tiny circle. Remember, less is more. You can always make the head bigger. So start with a small circle and then work it up to a good size if it feels appropriate. Okay, so now for the ears. The ears are going to be the exact same thing as the other one, except for, since he's a puppy, instead of doing the up and down, I'm just going to go and do the down. And this is really what's going to sell it that it's a dog. So I'm just doing 2 slashes. 2 swooshes. Now, we're almost finished. We did the point. Remember the hook, and then we did a little knee on the left side. We want to do ever so slightly another one on the right side. Just and small too. We want the left side knee to be a little bit larger because he's sort of leaning kind of. Okay, so here's an up close of what I've done. So we kind of just build him in as he goes. a little bit at a time. We've got that hook, and then we added a body, then the knee, and we had the head was a circle, and it's just 2 little slashes down for each ear, and then we followed with another knee on the other side. Now before we do collars, I strongly recommend you allow the paint to dry as much as possible. Oh, and fill in the body. Make sure that it's all filled in everywhere. I would say right now, let's take a moment and check out our paintings and see, is there something we don't like that we would like to fix? I see a couple things I would like to fix in my painting. I have a rule with myself. When I'm done finishing the painting, that's it. I don't do touch-ups or anything. It's all done in the moment, because otherwise I'll never complete a painting. And that would be really sad, wouldn't it? To never have completed the painting. So this is what I give myself, the final check moment. Now I noticed that some of my branches here, because I covered up in white, aren't looking that pretty. So I'm just going to give them a quick little touch up on the ends here, just to give them that extra pointiness that I kind of took away when I covered with the white. I'm going ever so slightly, just on mine, I'm just doing the ends. Now if you like your tree, just leave it the way it is, let it be what it is. It's beautiful. I'm just being a little perfectionist over here. There really aren't that many moments in time here. There's just a couple. I'm going to turn my painting really quick just for a second here to help me. No use in like straining your neck or anything if you don't have to. Now remember, we have the dark greens, we have the light greens, and then we have the white. Remember, so if you still need to layer, layer. There we go, it's looking nice. There we go. Beautiful, you're doing great. I'm so happy with my painting. I hope you love yours, because I know that I just totally love mine. It came out super, super cute. It's going to be a really good one. Okay, so one thing you could do if you wanted to is you could add little ornaments to your trees. Now, I'm going to choose not to add ornaments solely because I have already painted a whole bunch of Christmassy paintings, tons of them. And I don't really have that much of a lot of anything to hang on my walls during January. And it's quite snowy here during January and February. I'm going to do I have a bunch of paintings I'm going to do. I have plans to do a bunch more of the Valentine's lovey-dovey ones. But I feel that if I just leave the snow and the green, this is like a middle of the road, you know, between the seasons. And so, but if you wanted to add little things, I would recommend a really easy way is to take your brush, the bottom part, the round part that we used for the moon, and just go into whatever color, like maybe a red or like a yellow would be really cute. I would probably stay away from adding white dots because we already have the white in the tree. You could probably go purple. You possibly could kind of make it Mardi Gras a little bit, but I mean, different season, right? But, you know, and then if you could do that, you could add little balls. You could, if you felt, you know, if you're up to the task, you can go ahead and add actual ornaments of different shapes that like a motif of some sort, and that would be super cute. But, you know, I think for me, I just do dots, honestly. It says the purpose of Christmas tree. You could add the star at the top to be fun, like if it got decorated. I mean, we're outside in this scene, and more about twinkly lights, I guess. And then you could, if you wanted to, do like a garland of like, you know, popcorn and stuff. And the only difference that would be is instead of random dots, you would just dot and you would do it in a line and you would make it appear as though it's wrapping around the tree. And those are also pretty cute. But I think for being here, for where we are, I think this is a good spot. Okay, so let's see. Let's do the collars. Now we can do the collars any colors we want. Let's see. You could do, I don't know. Don't know what color I want to do for mine. You could do pink purple. You could do pretty much any color. I think I'm going to go ahead and do a brown. I think a brown, like a leather one, would look really cute. So I'm just going to get a little bit of brown. And with my nice pointy paintbrush, I'm going to just come across the neck. And there it is. Now it's always best if you make sure that the black is completely dry before you go adding all this brown. Ooh, that's adorable. You know what? I just saw, and I noticed it on my painting, some of the green ended up in my white a little bit when I was touching it up. That's okay. I can go back into the white and go back over. So if you have spots in your snow you don't like, just go touch it up with maybe some white, so we're not adding more gray. If we've added too much gray, I feel on mine, I might have added a little too much gray here and there. And you do a little touch up. Yep, I'm really liking it. It's good. It's a beautiful painting, just wonderful. You did so great, and I'm excited when you share the painting. I want to see it. I know you're going to share it, right? Because you didn't share it the last time. It made me really sad that you didn't share the painting, because I didn't get to see how awesome and cool your painting turned out. So please share it with me. Send me an email or post or whatever's easier for you, send it. And yeah, I want to see how cool it came out. So I will see you next time. I've got a lot of cool, fun other paintings coming up. I literally am in the studio literally every day. So it's 1 to 2, maybe 3 paintings a day. So I know that pretty soon I'll have something that you'll be like, ooh, I gotta paint that. And I'm doing all my paintings. I'm doing like different like skills and stuff and ideas and tips and tricks and all that. So stay tuned.